Do you know what the real problem with toxic people is? Here's the harsh truth. If you're dealing with toxic people, it's not their fault. It's yours because you've allowed them to be in your life. Toxic people don't just show up. They feed on your weaknesses, fill in the cracks in your boundaries, and take over because you gave them the opportunity. But the good news is that it can be stopped. You don't have to try to change them. It's better to learn how to outsmart them. In this video, I'll share powerful tactics that will help you not only deal with toxic people and take back control of your life. It's important. Afterwards, you'll realize that your world has always been in your hands. The first thing is to forgive. But don't forget, forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood concepts. Many people think that to forgive is to be weak, naive, or willing to turn a blind eye to the pain you've been hurt. But true forgiveness is something completely different. It has nothing to do with justifying the behavior or bringing the person back into your life. Forgiveness is about freeing yourself from the chains of resentment. I learned this through my own experience many years ago. I had a close friend. Let's call him Alex. We were like brothers, or at least it seemed that way to me. One day, I told Alex something very personal, thinking he would keep it between us. But a week later, I found out that not only had he given away my secret, but he was also a real pervert. Every time I saw him or heard his name, it felt like the wound was reopening. Resentment pulled me down until one day I came across a quote: "Resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies." It struck me. I realized that while Alex was living his life, I remained trapped in anger and hurt, and my resentment was punishing me, not him. I forgave, but not in the way many people might think. I didn't call Alex to make up, nor did I bring him back into my inner circle. I just forgave him silently in my heart. I let go of the anger, not for Alex's sake, but for my own inner peace. But the important point is that I didn't forget that betrayal. It was an invaluable lesson to me about who to trust and who to keep at a distance. Forgiveness allowed me to move on without bitterness. Forgiving mistakes is often considered a weakness, but it is actually the ultimate act of strength to be able to let go. It takes courage to let go of anger, especially when it seems like holding on to it is fair. But to forget is something else entirely. Forgetting doesn't reopen the wound, but it doesn't erase the scar either. A scar is not a reminder of the pain, but of what you have endured and learned. It doesn't define you, but it does shape your future decisions. Resilient people often emphasize the power of controlling emotions, and forgiveness is a prime example of this. By forgiving, you take control of the situation, refusing to let the other person's toxic actions dictate your life. Don't forget that you are protecting yourself from repeating that experience. Second, limit access. Let's be honest, some people don't deserve a front row seat to your life. Whether it's family, longtime friends, or coworkers you see every day. If someone is toxic, draining you, or constantly disrespecting your boundaries, it's time to cut their access to you. Call it toughness if you want, but it's okay to protect your world. Selfishness and survival. I used to be a person who pleases everyone, right at the bottom. I tried my best for people who wouldn't even lift a finger for me. Sound familiar? One day, after another tedious conversation with a man who thought I was his free therapist, I hung up the phone and thought, why am I doing this? What am I getting out of this relationship? It was then that I realized that not everyone deserves unlimited access to me. Here's where it gets controversial. Limiting access doesn't always mean ending a relationship. Sometimes it means setting subtle boundaries that the person won't even notice. For example, a friend who keeps dumping his problems on you, start replying, "It's hard. How are you going to deal with it?" See how quickly he or she loses interest. Or that family member who is always criticizing your life decisions. You don't have to argue or explain yourself to him. Just nod your head, smile, and keep your plans to yourself. Their disapproval loses power when they don't know all the details. I remember a coworker who loved gossip and drama. Every time he talked, you couldn't believe he did something like that. I'm always interested in office dramas and walked out. It was awkward at first, but guess what? He stopped dragging me into his scheming. Restricting access is not cruelty, it's mindfulness. Your time and energy are limited resources. Don't waste them on those who don't appreciate it. Because here's the truth. When you start appreciating yourself, the right people will start appreciating you too, and the wrong people will just leave. Using humor to disarm them is sometimes the best way to handle a situation. A toxic person is someone who doesn't take you seriously. Toxic people feed on tension, drama, arguments, and conflict. But what happens when you refuse to give them what they want to argue about? You just deflate their ego like a balloon, and their grandiose presentation collapses. I remember a toxic colleague who loved to criticize everyone and everything. Nothing was ever good enough for him. Not his job, not his coworkers' clothes, not even the way people drank coffee. He once commented on my mess on my desk as if a hurricane had passed through there. How do you even find anything in that chaos? Instead of taking offense or making excuses, I just shrugged and said, "You're absolutely right. It's my creative mess." Einstein had an even bigger mess on his desk. My colleagues laughed, and his attempt to belittle me completely failed. He never touched my desk again after that. Using humor is exactly what helps. You show that their attempts to hurt you aren't working, and it changes the atmosphere. Toxic people don't like that. Negative humor brings levity and unexpected moments they don't know how to handle. It helps them regain control. By staying calm and witty, you show that you can't be thrown off balance, and that can piss them off even more than direct confrontation. But there is one important point. Your humor should be light and clever, not aggressive or sarcastic. If the joke comes across as sarcastic or hurtful, it will only make the situation worse. Make their negativity funny. You don't want to stoop to their level. Fourth, walk away when you need to walk away from a toxic person. This is one of the hardest, yet most liberating decisions you will ever make. It's not just getting out of a bad situation. It's getting back to yourself, your world, your time, and your energy. But here's the key point. It's not always dramatic or sudden. Sometimes leaving is quiet and not noticeable. Toxic people are skilled at convincing you to stay, saying, "I'm sorry, I'll change," or using guilt. If you leave, it means you left me. Honestly, there's always a part of you that thinks, won't I be a bad person if I leave? But here's the thing. Staying in a relationship, whether it's a friendship, a romantic connection, or a family bond that drains you, is not noble. It's self-destructive. I had a close friend who was the soul of the company, but really a nightmare in person. Every conversation boiled down to his problems, his needs, and his dramas. If I tried to talk about my struggles, he either ignored them or turned them into a competition. Did you have a bad day? Let me tell you what a nightmare day I had. At first, I excused him. He worries a lot. He's not being mean. But as the months turned into years, I realized I was giving everything to this friendship and getting nothing in return. The turning point was a crisis in my life when I needed support. I reached out to him, and he said, "That sounds hard, but I have my own things going on right now." That's when I realized he wasn't being toxic out of anger, but simply because he didn't care. I finally decided to leave, and although it hurt, I felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Leaving doesn't always mean a complete breakup. It can just be a reduction in contact. Stop answering every call or responding to texts right away. Let them fade into the background of your life. Set boundaries. I can't talk about it, or I can't do it anymore. These are firm but respectful decisions. Ways to emotionally detach sometimes include walking away. It's refusing to stay in toxic relationships, such as with in-laws. The idea that you are obligated to tolerate them just because they are family is outdated and harmful. Kinship does not give anyone the right to manipulate or hurt you. It's important to have relationships that support you, not destroy you. And when you finally walk away, you'll realize something powerful. You're not only walking away from them, but toward a healthier and happier version of yourself. Surround yourself with inspiring people. Toxic people are like trying to float with a weight on your feet. Their negativity, manipulation, or drama is constantly pulling you down. The best antidote is to connect with people who inspire you. These people don't just bring positivity. They remind you of your value, support your growth, and help keep toxic energy at bay. Here's a simple truth. Your environment shapes you. If you spend most of your time with toxic people, you inevitably absorb some of their worldview. And when you're surrounded by inspiring people who genuinely want the best for you, something magical happens. You start to see the best in yourself. Think about it. Have you ever had a friend who makes you feel better? Someone who listens without judgment, enjoys your victories without envy, and supports you? That's inspiring, not dragging you down. I had a period in my life where I was stuck in a cycle of toxic relationships. One day, I met a new coworker who was amazingly positive and genuine. He was like, you're really good at this. Or, you handled the situation so cool. Over time, I realized that I was so used to veiled things that I didn't even know what real support looked like. Interacting with him and other similar people showed me what I was missing. They weren't trying to compete, undermine, or manipulate me. Instead, they inspired me to believe in myself and set higher expectations for the relationships I allow into my life. Sixth, refuse to participate in their games. Toxic people thrive on chaos. They are like emotional puppeteers, pulling strings to manipulate, provoke, or control you. Their games can be subtle, like trying to make you feel guilty, so you'll do something you don't want to do. Creating drama to be the center of attention. The only way to win is to stop playing completely. Toxic people are masters of provocation. They will say things that hurt your weaknesses or create situations where you feel the need to respond. But the moment you accept their provocations, you enter their territory and play by their rules. Whereas if you don't respond, you take away their power and leave them to their own chaos. I remember having a toxic relative who loved to cause arguments at family gatherings. He would throw in passive-aggressive comments like, "It must be nice to have so much free time. Some of us work, you know." I used to try to explain my choices, but it just made things worse and made me feel guilty. One day, I decided to change tactics. When he made a sarcastic remark again, I just smiled and said, "You have a right to your opinion." And then he turned the conversation to another topic. He tried again, but I stayed calm and didn't give in. Vavka looked very disappointed. He didn't get the reaction he wanted. Eventually, he stopped picking on me. Rejection is not passivity, it's a strategy. Here's how you can master this skill. People want to elicit an emotional reaction from you, but you just keep your cool and don't let their antics affect your mood. React minimally or not at all. Sometimes the best weapon is silence. Set boundaries. Make it clear that their behavior affects you. Let's talk when you're ready to have a constructive dialogue. Point of contention. Refusing to participate in their games is not a choice to be submissive. It's a choice not to waste your energy on battles that aren't worth it. Toxic people may accuse you of being cold, indifferent, or even cowardly, but this is their way of getting you back into the game. The main message here is control. By refusing to participate, you're reminding yourself that you don't have to waste your energy on anyone, especially those who live off of negativity. You decide how you want to interact with the world, not let someone else impose it on you. Life is too short to get involved in pointless arguments and toxic manipulation. When you take a step back and don't engage, you don't run away. You choose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and strength over manipulation. This is the game you will always win. Focus. Toxic people love to derail you from your goal. They thrive on distracting you by dragging you into their chaos, drama, and petty intrigue. Their goal seems to be to make your problems their own. But when you are fully focused on your purpose, your values, and your life, their noise begins to recede into the background. Focusing on your purpose is not only a defense, but also a show of strength. The thing is, toxic people want you to lose touch with yourself and will criticize your ambitions and downplay their importance. Your accomplishments can draw attention at the most inopportune moments. Why? Because a focused person is a threat to their control. If you're busy growing, achieving, and realizing your dreams, you simply won't have time or patience for their antics. I had a coworker who was the epitome of toxicity. He would weave gossip, create unnecessary drama, and constantly try to drag others into his problems. At first, I fell for it, spending hours listening to his complaints or defending myself against his petty attacks. But then I realized that every minute spent on his pointless chaos was precious time I could have been devoting to my work and goals. Then I decided to focus on what was really important to me. I set firm boundaries. I'm busy now. I can't discuss it. I began to avoid unnecessary conversations and focus my energy on getting things done. The more I focused, the less power he had over me. And, coolest of all, my example inspired others to do the same, leaving this toxic person behind. Here's how to stay focused on your purpose, even in the midst of toxic people. Clearly define your goals. Write down what you want to accomplish and remind yourself why it's important. This will help reduce the impact of distractions. Create a mental shield. See toxic people as background noise. Don't let their negativity creep in. Learn to say no if their demands don't align with your goals. Don't be afraid to say no. Your time is valuable. Use it wisely. Find your sources of motivation Surround yourself with people, books, or habits that remind you of your goal and fuel your determination. Focusing on your goal can mean putting yourself above relationships that don't benefit you, even if they are close friends or family. Some may accuse you of being selfish, but actually focusing on your purpose is not selfishness. It's a necessity. You can't give the best to the world if your own reservoir is empty. Don't get involved in gossip about toxic people. It may seem like a harmless way to blow off steam or express frustration. But let's be honest, gossip never ends well. They only keep toxicity in your life, make you look like someone you want to get away from, and worst of all, give toxic people a free place in your head. If you want to deal with them, resist the urge to discuss them. Toxic people feed on attention, even if it's negative. Gossip only adds fuel to the fire they crave, turning you into an unwitting participant in their games. A toxic environment where their behavior begins to dictate your actions is the exact opposite of taking control. I learned this lesson from my own experience. I had a coworker who was notorious for his toxicity. He was always creating conflict and dragging others down. This coworker somehow found out about our gossip and made himself look like a victim. After that, I decided not to participate in discussions and instead focus on being professional and resolving issues. It wasn't easy. Sometimes I just wanted to vent, but I noticed that by stepping out of that gossip cycle, I felt more energized and maintained my integrity. That's how you can avoid gossip and still stay on top of things. Sanity. Blow off steam constructively if you need to vent. Do it with someone you trust who won't add fuel to the fire. Stick to the facts if the situation needs to be discussed. Avoid insults or accusations. Focus on facts and possible solutions. Redirect the conversation when others start gossiping about the toxic person. Let's talk about how we can to deal with this situation. Focus on solutions, not problems. To avoid dwelling on the behavior of toxic people, focus your energy on how to protect your world and move forward. Practice empathy, even though you don't have to justify their actions. Realizing that toxic people often act out of their pain can help you resist the urge to gossip. Avoiding gossip can be difficult in a world where discussing others has become the norm. Some may even chide you for being too soft or passive, but actually refusing to gossip is not weakness, but wisdom. The main message here is this: rejecting gossip is a choice to break your connection to negativity. You are revealing the level of toxicity they are. Toxic people live in chaos, and gossip is one form of it. By removing yourself from these conversations, you deprive them of the attention they crave, and you preserve your inner peace. Dealing with toxic people isn't about changing them. It's about protecting yourself from them. Toxic people will always be there, but when you learn to set boundaries, maintain focus, and refuse to play their games, they will lose their power over you. Remember, your energy is priceless. You have dreams to realize, goals to achieve, and a life to build. Don't let other people's negativity distract you from that. Stand your ground, choose peace, and keep moving forward. If this video helped you see things differently, leave a comment and share your strategies for dealing with toxic people. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get more helpful information on how to live a stronger and more purposeful life. Thanks for watching.